Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The problem of poverty, hunger and malnutrition has been dogging our country for years. Every successive government has attempted with varying degrees of success to tackle these problems over the years. The efforts in the last 10 years to deal with these problems seem to be bearing some fruit now. The latest report on Global Hunger Index has indicated that in India, the malnutrition among children below 5 years has dropped from 43.5% in 2005 to 30.7% in 2014. Though there is still a lot to be done, this good news, especially for those who have been advocating vigorous interventions by the government with social welfare schemes. However, there has also been criticism for some of these schemes as being doles which doesn't help the people. The latest results on malnutrition, however, has shown that schemes like ICDS, National Rural Health Mission, Narega, food security schemes and midday meals have been helping. We'll discuss today how the war against poverty, hunger and malnutrition has been fought and what needs to be done in future to improve these schemes to eliminate these problems. To discuss this, I have with me Shailaja Chandra, former Health Secretary, Government of India, Pamela Philipose, a development journalist, Vipul Mudgal, Project Director, CSDS. Welcome to all of you. Shailaja Chandra, you have been Secretary in the Health Department. This is one of the major problems I'm sure you people have been tackling. So, this is good news that the kind of malnutrition has come down quite significantly from 43 to 30%. You think this has been because of the government schemes or do you think there has been other interventions which have resulted in this?
I think government schemes and also more intense monitoring and also comparison interstate, interdistrict and even within the district, intra the district. There is now a feeling that all these things matter. They are going to be picked up when surveys are conducted and you are going to be judged by the fact that something improved or went down. Having said that, I also feel that the linkages, the interdepartmental linkages is the issue where we are really still falling back. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I want an example.
Take an example of open defecation. Open defecation may not be the only reason, but studies do show that that leads to malnutrition because through the oral fecal route, the bacteria enter the gut, flattens the gut, and once it is flattened, no amount of good food is going to get absorbed. That leads to under 5 mortality of children. It also leads to something very serious within the first 2 years, stunting. And it doesn't mean stunting which is physical. It also includes mental stunting, which means you can never be rooted to the school system. Now, these 3 things are not the responsibility of the sanitation department or the rural development department, but the health department will say, they are not my patients. When they become patients, we will look at them.
Exactly.
So there is a need, a great need, which is not happening. It happens with poverty programs also. Is there a linkage between the money that you're pouring in and the final outcomes? And the final outcomes are some other ministry's baby. Let it be literacy, let it be women's empowerment. Midday meals ultimately were put in so that the children would come to school. They may be coming to school, but not necessarily just the nutrition. It was a means of attracting them to stay in school.
That is exactly the point. See, a program like midday meals, which was very successful in Tamil Nadu, where it was started first and things like that. But it has been facing a lot of criticism. People saying that, this is just a dole, it doesn't help kids. You're not actually educating. And there has been a lot of criticism. But when we see these kind of results coming at this point of time, so you think that these are schemes which actually needs to be implemented properly?
Yes, if they were implemented properly, there was more sharing of the successes and the failures interdepartmentally without blame sharing. And you looked at everything from an outcome perspective, not number of toilets built, but has malnutrition come down as related to defecation, have under 5, because diarrhea is the main cause. If diarrhea comes down, immediately you will see a lot of things will improve. That is linked to so many things, sanitation, water supply. I feel that the government programs are not all trash. They should not be trashed. But the incremental way in which the improvement takes place is far too slow, looking at the fact that the population is rising by leaps and bounds.
Exactly.
And we have this attitude of demographic dividend and all, but we are not in a position to keep those children rooted to school, what to speak of skill learning. Again, back to stunting and mental development. So I would say that if 43 has come to 30, it is really something to crow about. It is a very major achievement. On the other hand, we could do much better, much, much better.
Okay. Pamela, 30%, as Shailaja Chandra says, that we can crow about it, but the fact that 30% is also a huge number in this country.
And I don't think we have, our Millennium Development Goal, I don't think we have achieved it in terms of...
We have one more year to go for that.
2015.
2015,
yeah. And, but the point is, in terms of maternal deaths and infant mortality, I don't think we will actually achieve the target set. So it remains a huge issue. But yes, I think we should learn from the issue, from the gains and where we went right. And I think ICDS has an important role to play. And the Anganwadi worker...
It is very, it's very significant that the report, the Global Hunger Index report, which has come out, specifically mentions these schemes, saying that, they have actually helped schemes like ICDS and things like that. They've taken note of that.
There is a lot to be done, as Shailaja says, but the point is that there has been this huge change, and it for many years we haven't had any movement on malnutrition, and suddenly we have seen the final effect. And here I think it's also tied to people's ability to demand. Now they have voice.
And also, as she was saying, that the kind of interventions at the government level, the kind of monitoring which is taking place has improved. You think it has improved?
That is something which I can say. I was in the Ministry of Health. By the way, I was for long years in health, but I was not health secretary. I was health secretary in the Ministry of Health. Two things are different.
Okay.
But I would just like to say that look at NRHM, because that's a very major. They have been able to bring down maternal mortality. It's now come down substantially only because they have paid for the woman to go to hospital, have an institutional delivery, stay in hospital for 3 days, get food and get a package when she goes home for the baby, for herself, condoms, all kinds of things. I think this alone has been one of the most major achievements, that maternal mortality approach from the point of view of the woman going for an institutional delivery. Even the so-called Bimaru states, the percentage of institutional delivery from 20% has gone up in some cases to 70-80%. That is a great achievement.
Vipul, there is a huge lot of sarcasm when it comes to these kind of schemes, especially journalists themselves. You see the reports. Most of the reports are always trying to pick holes in these kind of schemes. I mean, justifiably in many cases. But, you think that despite the media's sarcasm or, you think that these programs have actually succeeded in many places despite the media?
Definitely. I think the success should be definitely recognized. But my problem is different. I mean, I'm sorry to sound pessimistic here. We have not done terribly well. So look at the same Human Development Report which came out in July 2014, which you were quoting just now. Now the same report puts us as number 135 out of 187 countries. Now we have remained there for a long time. The largest number of malnourished children in the world, India accounts for. The largest number of underweight children in the world, the largest number of children with stunted growth. So all that we are still accounting for, and we are the largest. We have the largest number of people doing open defecation.
No, I just want to point out. Just put the record straight. India was ranked 96 as far as malnutrition is concerned in 2006, and now it has come down to 63.
No.
So there has been
progress
yes.
In absolute numbers. Also, there has been progress. There have been groundbreaking schemes. Like in 2009, World Bank report said they raised questions about the scheme like Narega. 2005 it started just about 4 years back, and in their report they said that this kind of schemes are not going to work, and the word you used was dole. I think this was actually coming out of there. Later, 2 years or 3 years down the line, the same World Bank was recognizing Narega as one of the path-breaking schemes. Today,
this report also talks of Narega and
today,
says that it seems to have helped.
Absolutely, it is being compared to Bolsa Familia and Bolsa Escola and the conditional cash transfer in Mexico, etc.
in Brazil and
so the
Mexico.
pro-poor schemes where we have actually, apart from the interdepartment, I'm not looking at it from the governmentality perspective, from one ministry to another, but I look at it from a very holistic perspective where it all converges at the village level or at the district level. You see, there is a Narega scheme going, there is a ICDS going, there is a Rajiv Vikas, there is a NRHM, there is a skill mission, there is midday meal. Now there is a little bit of coordination between these is required. You need, people's participation in these, the public service delivery mechanisms to work better. You talked about the institutional delivery in hospitals. Now, you have these college dropout girls in villages. Can we do some kind of midwifery training for these girls from the money coming from NRHM and NREGA, and they being trained in tracking, pregnancies and malnutrition and things like that? We have to remember one thing, and this report also says, first 1,000 days are crucial, 0 to 2 years in a child's life, and mother's level of malnutrition is very crucial. It has a direct impact on cognitive abilities of children, on their learning abilities, on how good, bright they are going to be in mathematics and physics and stuff like that. So I think hitting malnutrition is like hitting every part of nation's growth. And I think...
there is also, Pamela, they are also talking of something called hidden hunger apart from this.
Right.
What is this hidden hunger?
The hidden hunger is actually nutrition. And here again...
Micronutrition.
Micronutrition deficiencies. Now, that is indicative of the quality of food that people eat. So, I mean, the ICD... And absorption, absolutely. And this is where the ICDS has actually worked very hard. The point is whether it reaches the children or not is, of course, the other story, And here the Anganwadi worker and the role of the Anganwadi worker, whether she has ownership of the scheme, all these are questions. But the point is there has been a lot of work done on using existing food people are familiar with, people access and enjoy. These are important issues. In Madras, I mean, the Chennai example and the Tamil Nadu great progress was because people used what the locals were eating and used to, and they also made sure that they got nutritional food, nutritious things like eggs and so on,
which it also brings us to, the way our priorities are. Now, say, for instance, everybody is growing wheat and paddy because there is procurement for these things. Now, the traditional crops like sorghums, like millets, like all kinds of ragis and the nutritional food, which takes very little water. These are not water-guzzling crops. So you actually you change your procurement, make it localized, decentralized procurement, encourage people
practices have to be changed.
Exactly. Entire rain-fed farming has to be geared to local coarse grain, which is high nutritious. We have to change a lot of things for this.
Yeah, Shailaja, Chandra, when you're talking of different states, why do some states do well? For instance, this report also talks about how PDS has improved, and because of that, this problem partly has been resolved to some extent because of the improvement in the PDS system. Why do you think there is such gap in between states and states? Is it lack of political will? Is it lack of the bureaucratic will? Where does the problem lie?
They're linked. I can tell you that by and large, southern states, you give them any scheme, they will make a success of it. They will improvise, they will do anything, but you will see that the benchmarks are met and in fact exceeded. Western India is also the next. What happens with the north and the eastern India are three things. I remember when I was a bureaucrat, say when I would have been in the 70s, 80s, if you talked of any social sector area, it was considered to be trash. If you got into a social sector ministry, it was considered to be, you've really not done well for your career.
A punishment posting.
A punishment. Now, things have changed. Even politicians look at social sector with respect and concern. That has not percolated to the leadership of most of these states which are not so good. But I do remember, Nitish Kumar came, Nitish Kumar went. But while he was in his first incarnation as chief minister, he brought a sea change in Bihar because he gave primacy to things like education, literacy, this institutional delivery, male sterilization for family planning purposes, something which Bihar hadn't heard of for 15, 20 years. The minute that happens, the bureaucracy falls into place. State bureaucracies work entirely at the wish and command of a chief minister. It's not like the central government, which is a completely different cup of tea. Here there are far too many pulls and pressures.
Right.
They work very well at times and they are disastrous at times. But we are talking about states. If you have a chief minister who is completely in his own caste-ridden mindset, or you have retrograde ideas like panchayats and all this being blessed, and in fact, treated as something perfectly in order, it is a part of our culture. If this attitude prevails, then social sector doesn't matter.
Exactly.
If people die, if you talk of under 5 mortality of children, the attitude is, we are already overpopulated, kya hua, 2-4 bacche mar gaye to. If you have this attitude, you can never move.
Exactly.
That attitude, you dare not use this kind of language down south. I was in a meeting last 2 days in Bengaluru on some health-related issue. There was an ex-minister of health who had been invited. I was absolutely bowled over with his commitment. He's an ex-minister. He knew everything about the districts of Karnataka. He knew which schemes were working. He knew where the improvisation had been done to good effect. He was able to tell everybody over there. Now that commitment,
That
if
kind
our
of
leaders had it.
Okay, I think we're now joined by Reetika, Khera, assistant professor at the IIT Delhi, who has also been working a lot on these programs. Ritika, we were talking about this report and the kind of improvement which has been seen as far as the malnutrition is concerned, from 43.5% to 30%. You think that this has happened? How far do you attribute this to the kind of social sector programs which we have seen in this country, implemented pretty rigorously in the last 10 years?
Sorry, there's quite a lot of commotion here. They're trying to sort out some technical issues. You're talking about IFPRI's Global Hunger Index?
Yes. Yes, I'm talking of Global Hunger Index.
Yeah. So, So, that Global Hunger Index is sort of useful to create media interest. But I don't think it's like the golden yardstick to understand what's going on in the country. Because like any other index, actually there are some issues related to this, but nevertheless, of course, it's very good that there has been an improvement in India's ranking, and it's a reasonably large number of spots that we have increased, so there must be something going on the ground that has led to this change. I would certainly think that this improvement, at least in part, has to be attributed to not only the creation of new entitlements over the past 10 years, but also whatever entitlements have been there since the past 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
Those are beginning to be implemented much better on the ground now.
Right.
I mean, obviously there's scope for huge improvement, especially in the North Indian states. But even in states like Odisha, for instance, I was in Kalahandi recently, and children who go to ICDS, to Anganwadis now, 3 to 6 year olds get 3 eggs a week, and the under 3s get 2 eggs a week. So, things like that are beginning to happen, and these have a direct correlation both with hunger and nutrition.
Ritika, what I wanted to ask you also was that despite, for a long time that there has been this, people have looked at these schemes as kind of doles which will never work, there's so much of corruption at the level, it never reaches the target people. So you think that that kind of an attitude will change now when we see these kind of results?
I would certainly vehemently oppose calling these entitlements doles, because doles basically means bheek, no? In fact, if you look at the international experience and what is going on, not just in Scandinavian countries or Western European countries, but even closer to us in the BRIC countries, India is very much a laggard in putting these entitlements and the social protection into place. Especially in terms of expenditure, India is amongst the lowest spenders on these programs. So I think people have to understand, and basically the ones who are calling it a dole are the upper middle class and middle class people in urban areas generally, who don't really have a direct experience of that sort of vulnerability and hunger that a large part of the Indian population faces. Even though things have been getting better for everyone, the vulnerability remains very high. The Bela Bhatia, who's at TIS in Bombay, she once put it very beautifully. She said people's lives are like earthen pots, and one little push, their lives come crashing, they're broken into smithereens. The second point you made was about corruption and whether people are able to, the right people are being reached. Now on that, I think it is right for people to keep asking questions and to keep saying we will not tolerate any corruption at all, and to keep raising the bar. And I feel that in fact some of the improvements that we have been seeing even in the northern states in the past few years are partly because people are becoming more demanding, they're becoming more vigilant, the media is also raising these issues much more. What the media is failing in, if I may say so,
Please say so.
is to also highlight some of the good things that are happening
Absolutely.
on the ground.
Absolutely.
No, it's just that the media has two roles, right? One is the watchdog role, is to blow the whistle whenever anything is going wrong, and then the other one is to present a balanced and a fair picture of the situation on the ground. And somehow I find, especially in electronic media, but perhaps even in print media, people don't want to go to these places, whether it's for financial reasons. I once remember somebody who works in TV said to me, "Oh, but we can't do that. It doesn't look nice on TV. It has to, you have to
it is
look."
not.
Can I just say something about corruption? Huh?
Yes,
See,
Vipul.
there is a lot of corruption in banking system. There's a lot of corruption also in stock exchange in India, stock market. Should we pack them up and say go home? There will be no stock trading in India because there's a lot of. We see this irrational argument because there is corruption in food distribution. So please stop PDS. There is corruption in NREGA, so pack up NREGA. I think this is a very retrograde.
No, in fact,
But
now, Pamela, in fact, as far as NREGA is concerned, now recently we saw a lot of people writing letters to the government and things like that. There is this, from a right, it becomes there is a move at the government level to change the entire.
But that has
To
been
dilute it, if
that
you
has been
dilute
the
the
case
word,
from
yes.
the beginning. It has been in spite of these characters who have been from the beginning. I remember the figure that was cited: 40,000 crores,
40,000 crores
down the drain. That is how they first framed the issue. The corporate press. So to that extent, of course, I mean, the point is the NREGA, despite the opposition, has managed to hang in there and has actually translated into really lasting transformative changes. The point is now there are attempts to, sort of undermine
dilute the whole thing and things like that. Shailaja, Chandra, you think that, how does one convince people who matter that these are things which are necessary and which cannot be diluted because the kind of impact it will have?
I don't think that decisions in the government, suppose even NREGA is diluted or it is changed or modified, my own experience is these are not political decisions. They are based very largely
on the bureaucratic
yes, and the
inputs.
input that bureaucracy gives is based on data. So if you find that there has been some sort of, you might say, fattening up of people so that they become lethargic and don't even go and work in the agricultural area and do anything because they're getting, suppose these are the findings and the data shows it, not an opinion, then in that case you have to bring correctives. But I would say that
a lot of good data is being ignored also. There's contrary data which is very clearly showing that some of these things are working very well. For instance, there are report after report. There is a report of a consortium of organizations who are working on NREGA. There is a report by IGIDR, one of the think tanks in Bombay. There is a report by international agencies like World Bank, etc. They are constantly saying that it is working fine. You see, what you are attacking is extreme rural poverty, which is directly linked to malnutrition. So we also have this ability to ignore very good quality data and go by some other. And if I may also add one more thing, there is a particular kind of noise you hear that there is policy paralysis going on. We hear it all the time. I've said it before also. But the point is that every time the reforms don't happen, you call it policy paralysis. Every time the industry does not get what it thinks is its due, you call it policy paralysis. I have never heard, if children are dying of malnutrition, you would call it policy paralysis.
Okay, very quickly. Ritika, how do you look at this problem which we have discussed now? You have been on the ground very quickly.
Yeah. So actually I wanted to say, how there are different sources of data and actually people just look at what suits them. So let me give you two examples. As far as the NREG is concerned, it is the World Bank in its World Bank report in 2014 that has called NREG a stellar example. Yeah, and this is the same World Bank in 2009 was calling it a barrier to growth.
Yeah, Vipul made
similarly
that point.
with the PDS, with the public distribution system. Yeah, with the public distribution system, there is a report from 2005 by the Planning Commission which has data from 1997 to 2001, and people still hark back to that 15-year-old data even though more recent estimates are available of leakage and corruption. They don't want to use that because it doesn't suit them. So I think it is very naive to think that bureaucrats are only entirely driven by data.
Okay, you have to, if you want to defend yourself, I'll give you 10 seconds.
No, I don't need to defend myself to fellow panelists. I have to defend myself before your viewers.
Yes.
And what I want to say is, take an example of right to education. It is also
We're
linked to
running out of time, quickly.
Right to education came because of the push of a certain mindset, which was very fashionable. It has been in many states a disaster. Children are not able to pass even that 10th pass exam. So you have to make midterm correction, and NREG, if there are problems, will have to be confronted.
Is required everywhere.
Okay, I think
you cannot say it's a panacea because you brought it in because you had all the fire and fury.
Okay, I think on that note we need to end. Midterm corrections are obviously necessary, but not throwing the baby with the bathwater, if you have to say. So we hope that these schemes are improved and midterm corrections are done. But what some of the results of this Global Hunger Index report is something which we all can be a little proud of, that we have brought down the malnutrition level to this extent. Thanks to all my guests, Reetika, Khera, Shailaja, Chandra, Vipul, Mudgal and Pamela, Philipose. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in Big Picture same time tomorrow.